Buongiorno e benvenuti. Welcome to Art Yoga Pills with me, your host, Dinny. In this space, we will connect and share together about creativity, inner child, and self-awareness. Siete pronti? Enjoy! Ciao a tutti, Kia ora, and welcome to a new episode of Art Yoga Pills. Today I'm not alone. I have a very special guest with me. Welcome to Faye Lawand. How are you, Faye?
So good. It's lovely to be here with you, Denny. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely a pleasure for me. I've been chasing you for a while and I'm so glad that finally we have the chance. My initial opportunity to connect with you was through a workshop, a local workshop here in Auckland that was about nervous system essential for maximum well-being.
That's right.
And that sparked me the curiosity to get to know you way, way deeper than just those few hours that we share together, and extend also this sharing with our listeners, so that is not just my pleasure, but hopefully everybody else who is here with us today.
Thank you, Denny. And thank you for your commitment to spreading the word about essentials for well-being, of which the nervous system is one part of well-being. So thanks for your commitment to that.
Absolutely. And I'm really curious to not just to get to know you better, but also to listen to your wisdom and insight related to this specific topic and anything else that will come through our conversation. So I guess that
Do my best.
I'm sure we will do fine together. So just to start easy in a way, because even the first question might feels like a big question, but let's try to make it as comfortable as possible for you. And my first question is simply, who is Faye? And feel free if you like to explore this question in a personal, professional way, or combining the two together if you like.
Sure, with pleasure. So Faye is an internal conflict resolution expert who now has a home base in New Zealand, but whose life journey started in a place of a lot of conflict in the Middle East. So I was born into the chaos and the conflict of the Lebanese civil war in the 1970s. And we were displaced. We were part of the demographic that was displaced from that war that lasted about 20 years. And we ended up moving around a lot during the early stages of my life. We actually lived in 13 countries. And so I really have been around the block, Denny. And one thing that I have acquired through my life experience is understanding how these conditions, chronic conditions and mental health issues know no boundaries. You know, I've lived, worked, and studied in 13 countries, as I've mentioned, and I'm a survivor of 3 burnouts. And I came to do this work that I now do in internal conflict resolution from a strong desire and a strong commitment to overcome the challenges that I faced in my own life and in my own personal journey, where the traditional solutions failed me. And the traditional solutions offered to me during those burnouts that I encountered through my life journey were, like medication and talk therapy, in some cases meditation, and I went down the route of yoga and breath work. And while all of those things do have their role in recovery from chronic conditions and mental health issues, they don't provide the full solution that I was looking for and that I now see my clients are looking for. And so in order to overcome these challenges in a way that is natural, that didn't involve medication, didn't involve side effects, it was really like powerful and long lasting, I set out on an inquiry about 16 years ago to understand what really are the pillars and foundations of well-being. What does it truly take to be happy, healthy, and well? And yes, while a lot of it does involve eating well and sleeping well and moving your body and thinking positively, that's not the complete story. Because a lot of us that start off on this journey do work on getting these pillars right in our life, and they are essential pillars in order to overcome these challenges naturally. But they will not take you the whole 9 yards. There's a lot more that needs to be done beyond sleeping well, eating well, thinking positively, in order to overcome poor mental health, exhaustion, and pain naturally. And that's basically what I've spent the past 16 years doing, uncovering what does it take and applying what I learned to my own personal journey. And when it all came right after a long road, because I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have a system to follow. I didn't have any mentorship or coaching or a community or accountability. I put it all together now in a system, which is the mental health blueprint, that is 3 simple steps, but very effective in order to help you overcome these conditions naturally so you can feel calm, confident, and in control. And that's now what my life work is. And that this is what Faye now does professionally. And this is what my mission really is in the world. You know, as the mental health pandemic or epidemic or whatever you want to call it continues to surge and explode, my mission is to spread the word that this can be done naturally in 3 months or less, without reliance on medication and meditation apps and talk therapy, which don't necessarily work.
Wow. Thank you so much for acknowledging all your journey up to this point in time, and also diving into your own personal life story, which to me is the one that always initiate the reason why you are standing where you are today, and you're offering to the community in order to support them as well, passing first from your own personal experience of all that chaos and uncertainty that life sometimes might feels like, and especially in a worse situation where it's not just like perception but is also real. And of course that can keep on being part of your own personal experience that you carry with you in your future or your present. And I guess what I would like to ask you based on this specifically is also how this is also for how it was my personal experience with the workshop that I had the pleasure to had with you, and which was the component of the nervous system. So I wonder if there is anything specifically that you can share with us in relationship with possibly even what is the nervous system for those that might not know what we are talking about, and how that can be an important aspect of identifying certain things of ourselves, and how do we work with something that there is already within us.
Yes, of course. And I just want to go back to something that you said earlier before I move on to talk about the nervous system. And that is really, I mean, we've all heard the saying that need is the engine behind all inventions. And really, this coming to this work and coming to this passion of and this mission of spreading the word of resolving inner turmoil in order to overcome these challenges naturally really came out of a real need to overcome something that was so challenging, for which there were no solutions. Because when I was growing up, you know, and I was a teenager, and my friends, my family members, and my teachers were asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, I never, ever, ever, ever dreamed or imagined that I would be a nervous system advocate, you know, or that I would be an internal conflict resolution expert. But this came out of a very personal journey that has driven me to be a real zealot for nervous system regulation, because nervous system regulation really is the missing piece and the difference that makes the difference in overcoming the chronic conditions and mental health challenges that seem to be so commonplace now in the modern world. And, you know, to the point where they've become so normalized, because it seems like every other person that we know struggles either with depression or anxiety or burnout or issues with sleep or exhaustion levels. So it seems to be so normalized that it's so commonplace. But here's the thing, just because something is common or normal, it doesn't make it natural. And what's natural comes back to how our nervous system is actually wired for well-being. So this leads me to your question about what is the nervous system. Basically, the nervous system is behind everything in our lives. It is the engine behind all of the automated, subconscious, internal processes that are responsible for our survival, but also responsible for us flourishing. And when I talk about the nervous system, because the nervous system, of course, is your brain and your spinal cord, and it's your peripheral nervous system as well. But when I'm talking about the role of the nervous system in healing and recovery from mental health issues, exhaustion, and pain, I'm talking about the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic sounds like automated or automatic. So it's the part of our biology, the part of our hardware that is responsible for all the automatic functions that keep us alive and also help us flourish. So the autonomic nervous system is behind the beating of your heart. It's behind the digestion of your food, the secretion of your sex hormones, the regulation of your immune response. It is behind your emotional response. It is behind your stress response. It is behind the growth of your nails, the growth of your hair. It's literally behind everything that keeps us alive and allows us to have the positive quality of life that we all seek and that we all desire. And so because it's so automated and so automatic, a lot of dysregulation can be happening underneath the surface that we're not conscious of and we're not aware of with our thinking conscious mind. And so we tend to overlook it or not attend to it just because, we're not aware of it with our conscious thinking mind, or we don't understand it, or we don't understand how important it is. But what's really important to keep in mind, Dini, is just because we're not aware of any dysregulation or any imbalance that may be happening underneath the surface, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And it doesn't mean that it's not creating major blockages and major inner turmoil that is driving the poor mental health and exhaustion and pain. And so, as you can see, because it is a fundamental part of the way our biology, literally the way our biology runs, we cannot overcome these conditions that seem to be so commonplace with medication. So, a lot of my clients who come to me, they've come to me after a long history of, being on the medication, seeing the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the osteopaths, the naturopaths, the massage therapists, the chiropractors, but yet these symptoms, these debilitating symptoms are still there. Well, they're still there because all of these modalities actually don't work at the level at which these issues are created and stored. And they're created and stored at this very fundamental, automated level that we're not aware of consciously. And this quite literally is the missing link. Nervous system well-being and nervous system regulation quite literally is the missing link in all of the stress management techniques and all of the modalities out there, well-being modalities out there that offers some support to your well-being, but not the full recovery, not the full pathway to relief that so many of us seek from these chronic conditions.
Well, Faye, thank you so much for diving so deeply into something that is really important to me to understand, and coming through your own experience and world, it makes such a different impact in the way that everything can be perceived different, even about ourself and our idea of ourself. And so going a little bit deeper into that idea of the self by understanding ourselves biologically and how our body function can truly shift possibly the perspective of anyone who has been questioning certain condition, either chronic or related to mental health, as it could be anxiety or depression, but any other condition that, as you said as well, they seem so normalized in such a modern day time in which we are living that sometimes it feels like quite scary as well.
Because Diddy, here's the thing. Look, our body knows how to sleep. Like our nervous system has the capacity to help us sleep, to help us digest our food, to help us have deep regulated breathing. Our body knows how to fight off, ward off viruses. Our body knows how to have periods. Our body knows how to conceive babies. Our body knows how to go through a menstrual cycle without pain and discomfort. Our body knows how to think clearly and how to be creative. Like, this is what we're hardwired for. We are hardwired for that. But the reason why it doesn't happen is because there's something or many things that have overwhelmed the system to the point that the system has so much inner turmoil and has so much internal chaos that there's disruption to the things that the body knows how to do, or that the nervous system knows how to do. And a lot of times these things that are the disruptors are so subconscious that we can't access them with our conscious thinking mind, which is why it's so important to work at the level at which these issues are created and stored, which is the level of the body, the level of the somatics, and the level of the subconscious mind. And really, one cannot overcome these conditions just by talking about them, by popping pills, or signing up to more apps. Because I imagine if you are listening to this and you have been living with chronic symptoms over a period of time, that you've tried all of that other stuff, because those seem to be the first point of call. They were for me as well. When I was first diagnosed with depression and PTSD 16 years ago, that's what was on offer to me as a first point of call. It was go on antidepressants and go and see a psychoanalyst and talk about your life and your issues. Well, for me, it was like a no-brainer to say no to the antidepressants, even though I knew nothing about the nervous system and nothing about the mind-body connection. But intuitively, I knew that taking a pill was not going to get to the root cause of what was driving my body to be so dysregulated and to be so unhealthy. And I thought, about the going to see a psychologist, when the doctor explained that a lot of times these issues tend to be psychosomatic and they tend to come from a psychological disturbance or an emotional disturbance. Like, on some level, actually, that made so much sense to me. Of course, that how could, something that happened in our life or the way that we think or our emotional responses not impact what's happening in our body. So I thought, what, that's worth a shot. So I went to see the psychologist. It was a psychoanalyst, I think, at the time. Psychotherapist, sorry, Danae. It was a psychotherapist. And I went to 2 sessions. She was a lovely lady, like really lovely. But after every session, or after the 2 sessions that I attended, I would leave the session feeling worse than I did when I walked in, because all we ever talked about was to delve into the problem, to delve into how bad I feel, to delve into all of the things that have happened that had led me up to this point without a practical solution to move me forward. So in a way, the solution was keeping me more stuck than my system already was. And so I lost my train of thought here for a moment. Could you just please repeat your question? See how passionate I am. This is how passionate I am about the subject.
No, I guess that we were just chatting. I didn't ask you a question. We were just flowing. No, we were just flowing onto the importance of understanding ourselves deeply in a biological way, so that can support us in understanding ourselves, even in a point of view in which might be fundamental for us to make different decisions than the one that we've been following up to this moment into our life. And I guess that taking from what you were sharing, the practical component, you were sharing about how those session that you had done with the therapist were not successful, but they actually make you feel worse. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit on the difference of a talking practice with something that can be more practical in relationship with your offering that you do, but also in the sense of how those are vitally important for our well-being internally and externally as well.
Yes, of course. So, Danae, 16 years ago when I had my first burnout, and that's where I went to see the psychotherapist at the time, who was very well-meaning, but not very practically helpful. Had I known back then, or had she known about, nervous system well-being, somatic practices, working with the subconscious mind and the stored memories in the subconscious mind, I'm convinced I would not have had two other burnouts. Because with every burnout that I had, it took me one layer deeper to come to the truth of what was really going on in order to completely allow these symptoms to be eliminated, not just managed. Because we don't want to just manage these symptoms. We don't just want relief from these symptoms. Like, we actually want to eliminate them. We want to banish them from our internal system because they're like weeds. They're not contributing anything to our desire to flourish and to our desire to thrive. And so with every burnout, I learned about one component of well-being, but it wasn't until my third burnout that I came to understand the importance of somatics and well-being and nervous system well-being that my system truly regulated. So with the first burnout, I had my first burnout on the beautiful Caribbean island of Curacao. Like, that's off the coast of Venezuela. Like, literally, I was living where people go to escape their stresses. And that's where I had my first burnout. And that just goes to show that burnout is not about anything external to you. Like, it's not about your job or your to-do list or your inbox or the juggling. It's not about any of these things. I mean, my first burnout happened on a Caribbean island where people go to escape their worries and their troubles. And so, because burnout is it's about internal dysregulation, right? And so during that first burnout, when I said no to the medication and no to the talk therapy, I ended up going down the first and most traditional route that people go on when they start on their well-being journey, which is to regulate my sleep, to think positively, to move my body, and to eat well. And those are very, very essential pillars to get started. And that's where I got started. And I must say my symptoms started to reduce, but not to completely get eliminated. But at least I was no longer having the fainting spells. I was no longer having the dizzy spells. The chronic pain started to diminish a little bit, but didn't entirely go away. Because, Denny, like with burnout or any of these chronic conditions, they're like syndromes. So they tend to coexist with other mental health issues, physical issues, and health issues. So that when you have burnout, it's not just about, depletion of energy or being very tired. Your thoughts are all over the place. Your digestion is interrupted. Your sleep is interrupted. Your mood is impacted. So it's quite a multi-symptom syndrome, which is why it's a syndrome, not just a condition. So yes, while after I started putting these practices into play, many of these symptoms started to fall away, but still I wasn't like living with that type of joy and vitality that I saw, but at least I was able to function. I had my second burnout in Dubai, in the city of dreams, a few years after that. And at the time I was working in a super toxic job and like a very, very chaotic work environment. That's where I had my second burnout. But at that job is where I met my Kiwi husband, which is why I now live in New Zealand. He was working in the same toxic environment, Denny. He didn't burn out and I did. And this just goes to show that it's not about the work environment. The work environment was the trigger to some internal chaos, to many internal conflicts that I was not consciously aware of. During my second burnout, in order to come out of the second burnout, that's when I was introduced to the subconscious mind and root cause therapies. And that was truly, truly transformational. And when I started going down root cause therapy to understand what was the root causes of all of the disruptions in my adult life, it was shown to me that being born into that chaos so early on and being born into that conflict and all of the chaos and confusion that came with that very early part of my life that I wasn't conscious of had a big role to play in the disruption and the conflict in my life as an adult. So I was about 40 when I had my second burnout, and when I came to understand the role of root cause therapies and conquering inner turmoil. So that's when I learned during my second burnout. During my third burnout happened when I moved here to New Zealand. And my third burnout happened, and that was the final burnout. It happened at the happiest time of my life. I had just gotten married, just moved to New Zealand, set up my business. We had just moved into our house, decorated the house. And externally, things could not have been better. They could not have been better. That's when I had my third burnout. And that's in my seeking for solutions. That's when I came to the work of the nervous system and the importance of anchoring to a felt sense of safety, and the importance of embodying safety and well-being, not just having it be a lifestyle practice or a thought practice. Once I implemented the knowledge and embodied the knowledge that comes with nervous system well-being, literally that's when things completely turned around. And since then, there haven't been any other burnouts, and there will not be. And I know why there will not be. It's because I eventually got to the root cause of the issue. And now when I work with clients in the way that I sequence things very differently. I sequence things from where I left off. So starting with supporting the nervous system, which was the last piece that I learned in my journey. You need to start with supporting the nervous system. The second step that you need to do is to conquer the inner turmoil. And the next thing that you need to do is eliminate chronic stress. And notice my choice of language, Denny. It's not manage stress, because stress is a problematic, and how many of us go around trying to manage stress, but, we're still stressed out and we're still not having the quality of life that we seek, because, stress isn't the issue. It's chronic stress that's the killer. It's chronic stress that's problematic. And that's what we need to deal with. So really the three things that the past 16-year inquiry have taught me are those three things that now form the framework of my mental health blueprint, which is support the nervous system, conquer the inner turmoil, and eliminate chronic stress. And in that order.
Wow, I really want to acknowledge your personal experience, because that is what led you to where you are, but also showing how we are all human beings, even as you mentioned as well from your own personal experience, that from the outside, everything might be perceived as awesome, but in reality, there is still, for many of us, something within ourselves that we have decided for a reason or another to leave it aside and not give it priority. And then it comes back to us with a massive slap in the face and bringing us something valuable that we can not turn its back anymore from acknowledging it. And I really want to, just being present for you, for your sharing, and the ability for you also to inspiring us through your own personal experience, which to me is always the valuable keys to realize that no matter where we are, there are people that have experienced something and they came out of that. And you are one of example of that. So thank you for your valuable sharing.
Danae, thank you. And I actually feel very privileged that I was able to do this for myself while I know so many people are struggling through it. I had a lot of things that helped me be able to do that. One of them being that I'm a lifelong learner. I mean, you can see like all of these certificates behind me because I had no training in this. I actually started studying, researching, training, doing research, taking workshops and seminars in order to help myself come out of this. So, and because I have that thirst for knowledge and I had space in my life to do it, and applying that to myself and using myself as a little bit of a guinea pig, I feel very privileged that I was able to come out on the other side. But, my message is that it's very possible, and it doesn't have to take you 16 years like it did for me. I mean, the only reason it took me 16 years is because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I had no clue. I was just literally making it up as I went along, because I didn't have anybody guiding me. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have a system. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have community. I didn't have accountability. I didn't have support. But now that, that system, that process has been refined and tested and tried and true and pretty fail proof, this system, now when I apply it with clients, does not take more than 3 months in order to overcome these things naturally without medication and meditation and talk therapy. The longest I ever work with anybody is 3 months. And usually I say this is possible in 3 months or less. For many people, it's done in like about 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow, thank you so much. It's really empowering because as you also mentioned, there are so many things that we are pre I don't know how to say this word in English, but the question that you've been asked as a child, what do you want to be as you grow up? And the ability for you to navigate your journey, facing your challenges and arriving to the point where you are now, where you have something so valuable that comes from your personal experience, from your curiosity, and now is helping so many people is extremely valuable. And to continue on that direction, another thing that I wonder if you feel like sharing is, it might be like a two-part question or one combined together. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but you were talking about also how practices such as even the one that I do with my project of art yoga, which is related to meditation, is related to the idea of well-being that has been portrayed to us so many times. And I wonder, thinking of that, what could be also the misconception of thinking that those relaxation practices might be useful, although they don't truly go as deep as it could be working with the unconscious, working with the dream state or the hypnosis or anything that is related with this diving deeper into something different from the practices in which we need to be present to ourselves and our breath.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Denny. So, when I talk about this, I think sometimes people get the impression or the misconception that I'm saying don't meditate or don't do yoga or don't eat well or don't attend to your sleep. No, please absolutely continue doing all of these things, because if you weren't doing all of these things, your symptoms would actually be a lot stronger than they actually are. So please continue doing all of these things, because we know that these are things that support overall well-being. But what I'm saying is they're not sufficient. And I'll tell you why they're not sufficient. Because these practices that we're talking about, the meditation and the breath work and walks in nature and playing with your pet and being outdoors and taking bubble baths and, doing your yoga, like all of these things are incredibly nourishing to the nervous system and allowing it to activate the relaxation response. And those are exactly the types of practices that we need to be doing regularly in order to downregulate. Now, what do I mean by downregulate? Downregulate is basically the capacity of the nervous system to recover from stress, to recover from the wear and tear of stress and busyness when we apply the brake pedal regularly, which we should be doing regularly, right? So basically, when we have like a busy day or a busy week or, a charged emotional situation, and we take time out after or during with all of these practices, then the system doesn't get stuck. Then the system comes back to that nice place of calm or parasympathetic functioning, where everything basically is ticking along the way nature intended it, right? Now, but what happens is that for so many of us, for whatever reason, we never downregulate. And in order to downregulate, this is actually like we need to flick the switch. We need to deliberately, consciously do something to bring the system down from that sympathetic fight, flight to that place of calm. And so many of us, either we don't know that we need to do that, or we don't prioritize time for ourselves or slowing down or time out, or we tend to push through because somehow we've learned the message from the conditioning of our environment. Stiff upper lip, what won't kill you will only make you stronger. We over identify with the busyness of, the self-worth that we get from the busyness. And so the system remains in that stressed out state, that sympathetic state for a prolonged period of time until eventually it quite literally runs out of fuel and it goes into a shutdown mode. Now, these chronic conditions we're talking about that are so commonplace, they arise from that shutdown mode. It's basically called the freeze state or the dorsal vagal state. It's basically the survival state, where literally the system is in survival and the only thing that it's producing or prioritizing is keeping your physical body alive. And when the system is in that state, there is no access to joy, creativity. There is no access to energy or positive mood or even productivity or motivation. This is why when we're in states of survival, not only do we tend to experience low mood, low energy, exhaustion, pain, and sleep issues, but also we don't have much inspiration. We tend to procrastinate more. We tend to put things off more. We tend to be more distracted. And it's not you who's doing that. It's simply your nervous system that has run out of fuel. And that's all it knows how to do. Now, when the system is in that state, in that survival state, those practices that we're talking about that are so nourishing are not going to be sufficient to lift the system from that state. This is why we need to go a little bit deeper and to figure out, we need to sort out the inner turmoil. We need to sort out the internal conflicts. We need to sort out what got the system there in to begin with. And in order for it to come out of that state and come back to a place of regulation where it knows how to function and where it knows how to behave and to do what nature intended it to. So I'm not saying don't do the yoga, the meditations, and attend to your sleep and your nutrition. Absolutely, please continue doing that. But if your system is still giving you those other symptoms that we've been talking about, you might need to consider working a little bit deeper at a deeper level to resolve the inner turmoil that is keeping the system stuck.
Wow, thank you for that to specify, especially on what you were initially sharing. So to clarify everything for everyone, to don't stop to do what you're already doing, because for sure it's beneficial. It's just a matter of understanding what we are hiding to ourselves in terms of either emotion or mental health or even chronic pain or chronic diseases. And I guess that one of my question for you related, especially with those conditions that we feel or we perceive as permanent, such as, for example, chronic condition or mental health issues, what this offering that you do can support people that are finding themselves specifically in this empowering moment in their life. What could that lead them to?
Right. So the promise is freedom from these conditions in 3 months or less, without medication, without meditation, without talk therapy, and an innate experience of being calm, confident, and in control without having to will yourself or tell yourself mantras or do your affirmations that really, or use willpower, which can only take you a certain length, but it won't take you all the way. Relying on these modalities will not get you all the way. But because the nervous system, as I said, is wired for the capacity to thrive, and it knows how to be calm, it knows how to be healthy, it knows how to be confident, it knows how to be in control. Once you support the nervous system, once you conquer the inner turmoil, once you eliminate the chronic stress, which is what my mental health blueprint helps you with, then in 3 months or less, all of these things just wither away actually quite effortlessly. It just happens because you're moving back to baseline, and at baseline, the body and the mind know how to do what you want it to.
Wow, that's quite fascinating to me, because especially in terms of people that might have been diagnosed for whatever health condition, it can feel quite challenging. And having that perspective that that issue might be lifelong thing that you need to deal with, and knowing that there are alternative possibilities that might allow us not just to work with our conscious mind, but even going a little bit deeper with the unconscious mind, which it's a major component of how we are
Yes.
functioning. Is just that we are not aware, because it's just like where we are, where we have download all those information that our body stores and our mind stores, but yet not knowing that there is so much potential in that space too.
Yes, Denny. And the thing is, the system that I'm talking about, like the conventional Western allopathic system, isn't set up for this type of deep work, for root cause therapies, for looking at inner turmoil, for looking at doing the deep inner work. It's not set up for that. Doctors aren't trained in this yet. I have faith that, as we make our way and as we navigate through the huge impact that the mental health crisis is posing, that more and more doctors are going to need to be trained in this. So now when I run these seminars on nervous system well-being, I am so heartened that I have more actually GPs, psychotherapists, psychoanalysts, psychologists, and psychiatrists coming to these things and saying, we never learned this, but that it makes so much sense, because this really is the missing link. So combined with what they already know in their allopathic practice, you can imagine how knowing this about this deeper internal part of the human engine can just produce explosive results. So what I'm trying to get at is the system is not set up for this type of deep inner work, either due to the training that the doctors receive, or simply to the way that the actual system only allows for 15 minutes of time with a GP. Or if you're going to see a mental health practitioner, you're going on, you're watching the clock, it's a 60-minute session, and you come back in 1, 2, or 3 weeks. But what do you do the other 167 hours during the week if you're seeing somebody once a week? Like, what do you do then? Like, if the system does not provide you and equip you with the tools, the access to them, the follow-up, the integration, well, what happens? What happens? And so it's a failure. I would say it's a failure of the system, or the system not catching up to the needs of the 21st century stressors and stresses on individuals living in a fast-paced world. I would also say that this speaks to possibilities, that it is possible. And, when I look at the countless people that have gone through the system across the planet, it just gives me so much hope that there is a way for us all to move forward. Because, Denny, when we do the inner work on ourselves, not only does our life improve, but the life of people around us also improves. As we're happier people and healthier people, we have happier, healthier marriages, and happier and healthier families, and happier and healthier workplaces, and happier and healthier communities. And that's really eventually how we make the world a better place. It's what Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Because, if anything, what the events of the past, I don't know, few years have shown us is that wars don't solve issues. Lockdowns don't solve issues. Diplomatic sanctions don't solve issues. Really, the only way things can improve is when we take responsibility for our recovery and our well-being and ourselves, and we do the inner work in order to be better so that we can do better.
Wow, thank you for your sharing, and especially to dive into the fact that not just people that are feeling overwhelmed or challenged by their own life might benefit from learning more about those modalities, but also people who are already seeker in their own life, in their own path, in their own journey for different reasons, and knowing that there is another possibility in which we can support ourselves but also support others, and living that as an unlimited potential that each of us has access to. We have the key, is just
100%.
that we don't know how to use them, and it's quite impressive that we are just like functioning in our everyday life a bit lost, not knowing what the capacity of who we are can expand in, and giving us the full potential of the fullness of our identity and our possibilities and our well-being. So thank you absolutely for that.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure. As you can see, I can talk about this endlessly and with with so much passion. So thank you for your interest in delving deep into this topic.
Absolutely. And thank you for being so passionate. It makes easy for me just to be here and feel like in a awe mood while you are just sharing all your wisdom. And I guess that at this point in our conversation, I just would like to ask you first if you feel like that there is something else that you wish to share that we might not have touched, that you feel that it could be quite beneficial and important to use this opportunity for us to just share it with our listeners. You may also say no if you feel like you have already covered so much, but I know that you're quite passionate in sharing. So just checking if any.
Yes, thanks for checking. I guess my final it may be a repeated message, but my message is if you're listening to this and you or someone that you know has been struggling for a while with these symptoms: disturbed sleep, chronic pain, IBS, fibromyalgia, worrisome thoughts, migraines, headaches, depression, anxiety, burnout, and it feels like you've been on this endless journey of trying everything, and yet you're not where you want to be. I just want you to know that there is hope. And one of the missing pieces is to look a little bit deeper inside, to uncover what internal chaos, what inner turmoil, what internal conflict hasn't been resolved and hasn't been looked at, and do the deep inner work in order to resolve that. And I promise you that as you resolve that inner turmoil, that internal chaos, your system will get unstuck and will come back to a place where it's behaving and giving you the type of quality of life that you seek and that you desire. It's very possible. The three things that you need to do is support your nervous system, conquer the inner turmoil, and eliminate chronic stress.
Thank you so much, Faye. And keeping the number 3 for our conclusion of our conversation and adding on to everything that has been already shared up to this point, I would like to ask you my final secret question, that it's an opportunity, just an additional opportunity to empowering one another. And my request for you, if you'd like to share, if you have 3 empowering messages that you would like to share with us today, and it could be related to what we already share or something different, and no matter of course how small or big those messages are. And if you feel like even one empowering message is, just go for it as well, and that could be possibly even just a reminder for me and you for our own life, as well as for everybody who is listening right now.
Yeah, sure. So just kind of piggybacking on those 3 steps that we talked about from my mental health blueprint, I just want you to keep in mind something, that your mind will always speak to you. Always. It's always speaking to you. Usually speaks to you through your body and through sensations in your body. And to the extent that you pay attention to how your mind is speaking through your body, to the extent that you actually spend time with yourself, quietly, in stillness, feeling and observing what's going on internally, to the extent that you do that, you get a gauge of what's really going on and what your mind is trying to tell you, what your mind wants you to understand, what your mind needs you to stop doing, start doing, or continue doing. To the extent that you do that, your life will truly transform, because this is very much part of the process. So I guess one of the messages is that your mind is always speaking to you. And usually it speaks to you through your body, through sensations and other internal experiences. The other message that I would leave you with is one that we touched upon earlier, which is just because something is normal, it doesn't make it natural. So just because it's normal and common, and you might be observing it everywhere that people are feeling wired, tired, and uninspired, it doesn't mean that we are naturally designed to be wired, tired, and uninspired. We're actually designed, your natural state is one of calm, health, happiness, and well-being. That is your natural state. And that is very, very, very not just possible, but effortless to return to that natural state once you conquer the inner turmoil and you do something about the internal chaos that is keeping your system stuck. And the other message that I would again like to return to that we touched upon earlier is just because you're not conscious of that something is dysregulating, just because you're not conscious that there's an internal conflict, just because you're not conscious that there's inner turmoil going on, it doesn't mean that it's not happening underneath the surface in a part of your brain, in a part of your anatomy that falls out of your conscious thinking mind, and that isn't responsible for all of the dysregulation and the symptoms that you're experiencing. So as you work on, a well-being plan that includes all of the things that you're doing and maybe some cognitive therapies, I would really encourage you to look a little bit deeper into learning about your subconscious mind, mastering your subconscious mind, training your subconscious mind, because truly, you cannot come out of these conditions just with your conscious thinking mind, because all of these things are very subconscious, because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, today I want to have a migraine headache. Today I'm going to emotionally eat. Today I want to be depressed. Today I want to have anxiety. No, nobody consciously says that, right? We consciously say we want the opposite, but subconsciously these things are happening and these things are automated. So really the importance of training your subconscious and learning about your subconscious will take you a long, 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 long way in finding recovery and long-lasting recovery from these symptoms, but not just long-lasting recovery, but like true joy and purpose and well-being. Because really, I mean, your subconscious mind runs the show. So I hope that those messages have been empowering and helpful for your listeners.
For me, they absolutely are. And this is one of my favorite parts because I'm the first one that just observed the beauty of those messages and feel quite empowered myself. So definitely, I feel that this will resonate with many of the people who have the pleasure to have listened to this episode up to this point. And just before we conclude, I would like to recommend to anyone to check Faye from any social media that will be added below the description of this episode to get to know her personally, to reach out if you feel you have any additional question, or even for yourself to reach out for yourself as your first step to something really powerful and grateful that you can donate to yourself as a gift. And most importantly, Faye, I would like to thank you for your time, your sharing, and your wisdom.
Pleasure.
For empowering us from beginning to end.
Pleasure. And again, thank you for having me on, Dene, but also thank you for what you do and what you bring to the world and the work that you do and in making the world a better place. I think it's a team effort. It definitely takes a village, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we are part of the same village to raise awareness.
You just read my mind. You just read my mind. The feeling is entirely mutual. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faye. And for everybody else who is listening, I'm really hoping that you gain as much knowledge as possible from this sharing and you are empowering yourself to make any decision possible for your own well-being and your own health. So thank you very much, Faye, for being with me, and thank you everybody else who is listening. I hope you're going to have a great day.
Grazie per averci fatto compagnia. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you wish to stay updated and connected, visit us on our social media channels and our website www.artyoga.co. Ci sentiamo presto. Ciao! See you!